using a different microphone today that you might be able to see here, because last time the sound quality was pretty tinny. So I hope that you can hear me better. I will project my voice. I am a loud talker anyway, lucky you. So yeah, I'm trialing a different microphone today. So just let me know if you can hear me. Say in the comments, say hello, hello, and as always, guys, we're going to get stuck in because I'm not one for waiting around. So today is all about the basics of using this thing here. Now, I hope that you can see it. I do apologise. My studio is very bright and white, so visibility. Thank you, Al, and hello, Al. Visibility is something I've learned from one of the first lives we did together, so I am learning. But this here is a PatternMaster. I mentioned it in the tools of the trade, which you'll be able to find over in the Fashion Studio. I sound like a broken record. And this really is my lifesaver. I am mildly embarrassed by how scuffed mine is, but I have had this baby for the best part of a decade. Hi Tracy, hi Anna Marie, hi Margaret, hi guys, thank you so much for joining me. Kirsty, hello, hello. But what this is it is an amalgamation of other tools, and even now I find well, you can tell, look at it. Look at the sorry state of this. You know when they say that owners look like their pets? I think I look like my PatternMaster. But I reach for this on a daily basis. And over here is a French curve. Look how new and shiny this looks because I hardly need to reach for it. So, oh no, it's scuffed. Is that my internet connection? I'll try and go slow and hopefully it... Oh, you mean you can't see that it's scuffed and embarrassing? Right, okay. I'm on board with you now, Anne-Marie. And what this does is it's an amalgamation of multiple other fashion tools so that you can have them all in one nice little neat package. Just to give you a run through of it before I actually do a demonstration on a pattern over there. Hi Jackie, how are we doing? What we have here is, this is metric. This is metric measurements. You can get it in imperial. I have linked a cheaper alternative over in the Digital Pattern Library Fashion Studio. This one here was about £30, but you can get them for around a tenner. And what you'll see here is you have your measurements along the side, which are symmetrical. You start in the middle here and it goes from 1 to 21. And again, the same this side. So we have a 42 centimetre measurement. If I bring this up to the camera, you can see how naughty this is because it's faded. Let me try and get that. Oh, that's really hard to try and centre it. You can see how naughty that is because my measurements have actually faded right on the end, but they are still accurate in the middle. And so you're going to have your straight line measurements along there. Let me just make sure that that camera refocuses on the table. You have, it's a bevel cut along there, so it's cut at an angle, whereas it's a square cut around everywhere else. So when you're drawing a straight line, you want your PatternMaster to be the right way up. But when you're doing armholes and necklines, you can flip it around to use these sides because they are square cut. So it will still have a lot of accuracy for you. You're going to see lines along here. This measurement here is a good 6 centimeters. And so you're going to be able to do straps, bands, bias binding at 6 centimeters width with ease. You can, of course, go much bigger because you're going to be able to measure along here. You have your cross line here. This also doubles up as a set square. So Oliver, I don't know if you're with us, but I know you mentioned you're fed up of French curves and everything. This also doubles up as a set square. Permanent markers for fixing faded numbers. I don't think I'm that accurate and or delicate with my handwriting to be able to do millimeter precision on that. But that's a good tip for anyone with a steadier hand. So this here, you've got your 45-degree angle, you have a 90-degree angle, and then you'll also notice, if I lift her up again, you have these lines around the curves, which are 0.5 centimetres and 1 centimetre for your seam allowance. Now, if that wasn't rushing through everything, I don't know what was, but let me bring in my Blue Peter, here's one I made earlier example. So, to implement this and put it into action, which is the fun bit, I'm going to do this with a felt just for the purpose of clarity. But again, as I mentioned before in the pattern tools video that I did, you do want something that is as accurate as a mechanical pencil. I hope that that is focusing. You get the gist. You all know what a mechanical pencil is. And what that does is that is millimeter precision for when you are using your PatternMaster. Now, I have got a basic bodice here, and I'm just going to show you how you can do multiple different things with my favorite little tool here. And so you'll notice that my neckline isn't drawn in, and yes, again, you would usually use a French curve or whatever, but that is no longer needed with the beauty of a PatternMaster. So I'm just going to use the curve by here to draw in a neckline shape. And you can always play around with your neckline. It's one of the things that you always have design control over. But there we are. And that suddenly feels very anticlimactic, but there is more, guys, I promise. But again, for your armhole, and again, this can be used should we extend this pattern down. We could even use that for your hip line and just make sure that we're following a nice smooth contour of the body. So in terms of the French curve being made redundant, this is a really, really good, strong tool to use. Another thing is we can add seam allowances on a curve. So if I did want to add a 5 centimetre, 0.5 centimetre, let me turn her around so that the neckline is closer to your vision. If we wanted to put a 0.5 centimetre seam allowance on this, then we would simply line up our PatternMaster with that 0.5 centimetre already marked out for us. And we would draw her in like that. And it really, really is that accurate and that simple. Another really good hack for drawing seam allowance on curves, because this does only go up to 1 centimetre. Say I wanted to do a flat felled seam, and that would require at least a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. I'm going to do this in pencil, just so that it doesn't look really, really clunky, but I'll make sure that I try and do it as hard as possible. What I'm doing here is on the lines here are all 0.5 centimetres apart. So what I'm going to do is this is a centimetre, and I'm going to go up to this line here, and I'm just going to measure that to the edge of my armhole, and I'm just going to go around, keeping it straight, but pivoting the PatternMaster and rotating it with the armhole as I go. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments if I'm talking gobbledygook, and I will try my best to re-explain that in vocabulary that isn't isn't a crazy Welsh woman rambling away in her studio. So you don't worry if the curves only limit you to 1 centimetre in seam allowance, because you can use the straight edge. What are they called? Are they like spirographs or something? That's what that always reminds me of. So I hope you can see that. But that has given me a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance around my armhole. And so I can then go back in and draw it in like so. I hope my big head's not in the way. And now we have a much thicker seam allowance around the armhole here, and yet we're still getting away with a 0.5 centimetre seam allowance by there. Guys, that really is it, to be honest. But the so let me just add a centimetre seam allowance around the edge of this pattern. This is a basic bodice block for anyone who is wondering. You can get the quarter scale pattern blocks for free over on the resource library on digitalpatternlibrary.com, and you can play around with this, but obviously they're quarter scale, so it's going to be quarter the size, spoiler alert. And so another thing that's really, really useful with this is because we're starting from 0 in the middle, this is really fantastic for measuring our darts. And so the dart here, you would, if I had done a good job at being a Blue Peter presenter, you would have a straight line down from your bust point or dart point or whatever, and you can then measure, if I line this here, I can measure equally either side of this dart, like so, and that's why it's really, really easy to have that as a central measurement, and then you would just draw your dart in, like so. So you can really, really see how multifunctional this is for a lot of applications. And then finally, although this would be cut on the fold because of its half a bodice here, if you did want to do your diagonal lines, if you did want to do cutting on the bias, then you just use the 45-degree line. I'll try and make sure my studio lights don't ruin that for you. We have 45 degrees here, 90 degrees here, and then our straight here. So if I wanted to cut this on the bias, I would line that 45 degrees up against the center front, like so. Whoop. I'm gonna get very good at one-handed demonstrations here, guys. And then you would pop in your grain line. So that, in a very quick, blazing through everything as you're learning, I like to do, as you're becoming accustomed to, is how to get the most out of your PatternMaster. I think the main point is just accuracy. As I say, these are square cut. I think I've just read that someone has it beveled around the whole edge of theirs. I'm just leaning over and having a look at comments. I swear someone said that theirs was beveled around the whole edge. All that means, if it is beveled, is that when you flip it over, it's just a little bit less accurate when you're kind of drawing against the beveled edge, if that makes sense, because there's a tiny, tiny lip underneath this if I'm drawing from that way, whereas if I draw from this way, then the beveled edge lies flat against the paper, whereas when this is square cut, which just means it goes straight up and down, it's accurate from both sides. That's all that means. So they're just things to kind of bear in mind. But that's it, guys. Breezing through it as always. I really hope that you found some value from this. I will obviously be keeping this free training available permanently in the Digital Pattern Library Fashion Studio. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, so if you ever have any suggestions or requests for further workshops, then please do let me know. I am always here to share knowledge, to try and ease you into the world of fashion that doesn't need to be as daunting as we think it is half the time. If you're watching this on replay, please comment #replay just so I can get back to any questions, see what you think of it. I always enjoy your feedback so that I can better myself. Hopefully the visibility issues from a few weeks ago have been squashed and we are moving on up in the world. But thank you so much for joining me, guys. I really do hope that you gleaned a bit of an insight from this. And if you want to head over to the Fashion Studio, I have linked a really cheap PatternMaster for you to get started. So I really can't wait to see what you do with it. Go and have a play around. That's what it's all about. It's about fun, experimentation, and getting the most out of your patterns. But stay safe and keep creative, guys. Really, really appreciate it. Take care.